before I start my video, I just want to ask you, what would be your perfect starting stats on a 5-star weapon? That's some of the key elements we're going to be talking about in this video. What would you want to be in the first slot, second slot, third slot, and fourth slot on a premier weapon on a premier wheel? Hello survivors, and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video. In this video we are going to look at the premier arms cache. We have seen this pop up a couple of times. I did talk about this once before, but I think it's a good thing to readdress in the fact that the premier arms cache, or the epic weapons cache here, is terrible in terms of what it's offering. The top tier 5-star weapons in terms of what should be the sparkly thing that attracts people to pull on this wheel is not really offering anything of any use. Let's look at the main first weapon that it shows. It's Mr. Jones Violent Bolt Rifle. It has 30% attack, which is useless for Mr. Jones. That's just a side note because it is Mr. Jones's weapon, but 30% attack, 15% defense. When being attacked, a better chance to heal one other team member with 35% max HP. Every turn, 25% chance to heal one teammate by 50%. So it's already a 5-star weapon, so you can only upgrade it 3 times. And the slot 3 and the slot 4 on this weapon are both terrible. So you're going to have to roll those again and then go for huge AP, and you've got a bad weapon basically off the bat. It's absolutely horrendous how these weapons are coming into the wheel with no increased stats, considering they've already missed out on 3 upgraded slots. We'll look at the next one, which is Moira's sturdy aluminium baseball bat. 30% HP, which would make sense for Moira just in that case. 15% defense. When attacking, a better chance to cause minus 40% defense for 3 turns to the enemy. Increase basic attack damage by 20%, and basic attacks ignore defense bonuses. This weapon contradicts itself. It's a support weapon and a damage dealing weapon in one, because the 4th slot doesn't really go with HP and defense down. Like, you want your weapons to be very streamlined towards one thing, being attack, support, defense. You don't want bits and pieces unless there's a very, very specific character that can pick up those. And if you're trying to sell a niche weapon as a premier arms cache thing, it's generally not going to be a good thing in my opinion. This one yet again is exactly the same as the first weapon, where it's missing out 3 upgrade slots, and generally speaking you're most likely going to want to upgrade the 3rd slot. Now the last weapon out of the 3 is probably the best of the 3. It has 30% attack, a medium bonus to AP when attacking. It has double attack, the standard double attack, which is a tier 3 3rd slot, and then increase basic attacks damage by 20%, and basic attacks ignore defense as the 4th slot. The 4th slot is not a trait crit, but it is one of the more looked for upgrades, especially in combination with double attack and 30% attack. This weapon could go in Priya's hands, for instance, and pretty decent, not amazing, just pretty good. You also are going to be able to upgrade the medium bonus AP to huge and then attack to 40%. However, while this seems like it's a good thing and you're getting a little bit of a head start, you are losing out on key upgrades. You would be able to get other weapons to 50% attack when getting double attack, because you can already get 30% attack and double attack weapons from 4-star weapon tokens. We're in the 4-star weapon tokens right now, and this new threat, aggressive AK-74, which is the Dwight weapon from the event way back when. We haven't had too many weapon events. I think weapon events was actually pretty fun to get a decent weapon from an event, especially if it's just grindable, and I think there potentially should be a comeback for a future event where it's just you're working for a weapon. It doesn't necessarily always have to be characters or character shards. You could do a good weapon, and I think this is a good example of a good weapon in an event. Now, when it comes to this weapon and you compare it to the one before, this one gets 3 upgrades right now. This one's going to get a huge bonus and 40% attack. When I upgrade it to a 5-star weapon, it then gets 3 more. I can get that 20% extra attack on basic attacks quite easily. It's not a hard crit to get. And then I get 2 more upgrades on the attack for another 10% attack, which is huge. Literally, the only difference between the 2 weapons is one's instantly a 5-star, so you're not going to have to spend 50k Armory tokens to get it to a 5-star weapon. And that means you're going to be able to slot it into the hands of someone like Priya if you've got her weapon to 5-star instantly. And it just seems to me like they're leveraging the fact that they're not giving out Armory tokens too often by giving 5-star weapons that aren't very good. You know, people are kind of desperate for these armory tokens, which are available in here as well. Some of these other weapons are actually better. Like these 4-star weapons are genuinely better than a lot of the 5-star weapons that have been released, just because you get more upgrade opportunity on them. Now these armory tokens are just so few and far between at the moment in the game. There isn't really any way to get these except arenas, and you're getting 60 in an attack. So for your free ticket every day, you might get like 300 to 400. So in a week, you could potentially get around, you know, 2,000 to 3,000. Every single craft requires 4K for the slot 3s. Every single craft for the 4 slot requires 8,000, right? And then it costs more to reset a 5-star weapon if you don't get what you want. It costs another 2,000 armory tokens just to reset your weapon. Now I'm very fortunate, I actually have quite a lot of these. I managed to research quite a lot as well, but I banked these because I know these are going to be hard to come by. I'm not just willy-nilly upgrading 5-star weapons. I only did it during the event to get extra bonuses from missions. Generally speaking, I will not be upgrading weapons unless they have got a nice slot 4 special or they're a person's attached weapon. I did Alice's SMG because I saw her having a longevity, and I did not have an S-class character's weapon in position. If I had Priya's weapon maxed out at the time, I definitely would have gone for that. Now, Alice's weapon's not perfect. It isn't too big a deal, mainly because she's a 6-star, so her longevity is not as good as S-class characters. I would say definitely the ones to upgrade would be S-class character weapons, like I did for James. I haven't started upgrading this yet because A, is quite expensive. You have to research the right things. And B, I mainly just upgraded this to 5-star, like I said, just for the missions. So taking a look at the odds breakdown for the epic weapons cache, you have 1% chance of getting a 5-star weapon, 2% chance of getting a 4-star weapon, so only 3% chance of getting a weapon in a weapons cache. You know, that's just ridiculous. 50% of the chance is going to armory tokens. The requirement, you know, effectively the new materials for the next tier in terms of 5-star weapons. And there's no real good avenue of getting these things. You know, armory tokens, like I've already talked about, there is not a lot of ways to get these, and they're trying to bank on people wanting to buy them rather than actually being able to provide you a way to work for them. If we look at the odds breakdown for the rest of it, 5-star optional parts and 4-star optional parts, you have more chance of getting 4-star optional parts in an epic weapons cache. The overall chance of getting something that is at an epic level in this epic weapons cache is 21%. That's not including armory tokens. The rest of it, the other 29%, go for 4-star weapons and 4-star optional parts. So it's neither epic nor really a weapons cache. So I don't really know what the advertisement even means there when it says epic weapons cache, because that's the lowest percentage chance you've got of getting anything is epic or a weapon. So my personal opinion on the epic's weapons cache is, generally speaking, to steer clear. You're only really pulling if you're kind of okay with dropping money and you do want a lot of armory tokens. The rest of the stuff you get in here is, generally speaking, not going to be too great. You could potentially get, you know, the absolute defense green weapon, which is okay. You know, armory tokens is the main thing you're going for, and the top tier things like varnish and stuff like that. So you're hoping to get lucky, basically, and you're hoping to get large numbers of those armory tokens. There is no odds breakdown on how many of those armory tokens you're getting. You could legitimately get like 10 on a pull for 220 coins, you know. I don't think this is good value at all. The weapons, even if you get lucky, the 5-star weapons are not great. 1 out of 3 of these is decent, and it's not even good, it's just decent. I think they really need to readdress the 5-star weapons that they're pumping out as premier weapons. As a 5-star weapon, something like this would be much better as a base for it, because you're only going to get 3 upgrades. The best you're going to get on this weapon is a 4 slot and 40% HP. Now that's a decent weapon. It isn't the strongest it could be, but at least you've got guarantees and good 3rd slots or a good 4th slot. You could potentially put a good 4th slot in here instead and have a blank 3rd slot, or just an average 3rd slot like a bleed or something, just one that you're going to definitely want someone to replace. We don't ever get weapons with a huge bonus to AP on them when most people are going to craft that. That would be the best advertisement or the best promotion for a weapon that they could actually do. Also, you could potentially just not have a 30% stat on there, have a good 3rd and 4th slot, and then have it so that the 30% stat is where all the key upgrades are going to go. And that way someone who is willing to do this would consistently reset the weapon, hoping to make it perfect, to make it so that it was that 40% attack or that 40% HP or 40% defense. When you give someone a 5-star weapon and they get a decent upgrade to the 4 slot, regardless of the other upgrades that come next, they're generally speaking not going to reset it, because that 4 slot is so rare to come by that it's not worth losing the 4% attack on. But if all you're working towards is attack, 30% attack, and then 2 5%, someone could potentially reset that multiple times. I just want to see some smarter creations when it comes to the weapons, at least at 5-star tier. People are going to buy these weapons, but it'd be better if they were actually more useful and better value for the people who are going to do it. It would potentially make more people want to pull for them as well. Make the epic weapons cache maybe a bit more weapons as well, maybe like 10 to 15% overall chance of getting a weapon rather than the 3%. Maybe reduce the amount of armory tokens you're going to get from it and increase the armory tokens that you can actually work for and play for. You know, a lot of people put a lot of time into this game and there just aren't enough avenues to get them at the moment. This goes back to the episode of The Roads where I was talking with Invisinerd just about the game economy, and armory tokens is definitely in there, as are some of the other items you need to upgrade your weapons to tier 4s on the 3rd slot, just because it requires so many of certain items. Etching acid, for instance, is very hard to come by as well, and you need 5 per craft, and the armory is brand new, so there isn't really much excuse for this except for trying to get as much out of this as possible rather than creating a better player experience. So it definitely needs to be re-looked at. It could be a better experience overall for the players, and it could also probably make more money for Scopely if they actually created better 5-star weapons in the process. But do tell me what you think about the epic weapon cache. That is the end of my video. Thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.